The death toll from an attack on a Christmas market in Germany has risen to 5. There are more than 200 others injured, 40 of those critically. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is in the eastern German city of Magdeburg, where the attack took place on Friday evening. Authorities have arrested the suspect who drove a car through crowds for several hundred meters. He's a 50-year-old doctor from Saudi Arabia who moved to Germany in 2006. He expressed anti-Islam views online, and Germany's interior minister says he is considered as being Islamophobic. Now, speaking in Magdeburg, Chancellor Olaf Scholz condemned the attack as a terrible act and called on Germany to stand together against hate.
It's important to me that when such a terrible thing happens, such a terrible attack, which injures and kills so many people, almost on the anniversary of the attack on the Breitscheidplatz in Berlin, that we stay together as a country, that we come together and that we talk to each other, so that hate doesn't guide us, but that we are a community moving toward a common future.
With me in the studio is Raphael Bossong. He's a security expert at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you very much, Raphael, for making the time. We just heard from the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz highlighting the severity of the situation. I mean, we're talking about 5 dead, more than 200 injured, 40 critically injured. But I want to pick your thoughts on what you make of this attack.
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest, to be clear. I mean, we can all kind of make conjectures, but the most plausible theory or assumption is that this guy was clearly mentally disturbed. How much it was like a clinical illness, I don't know, but at least in terms of the political views he espoused, that seemed a very incoherent hodgepodge of ideas. So, yes, originally I also thought this was going to be something different because, of course, the general threat of terrorism remains, well, not as high as it has been, but relevant. And we've seen this kind of attacks before, but they were embedded in a different kind of ideological setting. And this one seems to be a crazy loner who got it into his head, apparently, to do maximum harm.
Right, seems to be. Just to be clear, investigations are still ongoing, so we'll probably get the final verdict later. But especially after past incidents, Christmas markets like the one in Magdeburg, they normally tend to have security, right? But what went wrong this time?
Well, that's obviously also something still to be determined. I mean, I haven't been to the locality itself, so I was also surprised that because all the Christmas markets are now usually blocked off with various barriers and concrete blocks, and how this guy could drive it at such high speed as well into this crowd. Well, sometimes there are avenues for sort of rescue services, but obviously that shouldn't be accessible to a normal car. I mean, that's one thing that still hasn't been sort of discussed publicly. I understand, but it will be certainly coming in the next few days. And the other thing is, of course, couldn't we stopped this person in advance? And there have been various online traces of this person who gave rise for concern. Allegedly, several people tried to report him to the police already, and nothing happened. And then again, of course, this is also something still to be debated. I think there is fair reason to say maybe the police and the authorities should have acted more decisively earlier. On the other hand, I also understand there is such a huge deluge of toxic stuff on social media, people saying all sorts of things, that it's very, very hard for the authorities to know what's real and what's not. But I think as a last piece of the puzzle, I mean, all is not corroborated so far, so I have to be careful here, but some were saying that in the past, this guy was actually a criminal or sought for criminal charges in Saudi Arabia, and that could have been perhaps also taken more seriously. So really, we'll see, hopefully, in the next few days. Certainly, something could have been done earlier, but at the same time, we know we can't watch everybody all the time.
Right. Rather unfortunate. As we've already established, this is not the first such attack, but what makes it different from previous ones, if there's any?
Well, as I said, the kind of ideology seems to be really weird. I mean, he, on the one hand, claims to have been an advocate for refugees, but anti-Islam. And then he blames the German police for somehow alienating refugees or himself. And so it doesn't quite seem to add up. I mean, if you want to take a bigger position on this, and I'm cautious because everybody's playing politics with us at the time, and this is unfortunately what happens often, but we really should try to put a break on it. But it's kind of that, obviously this guy was also, among other things, pulled into right-wing conspiracy stuff. And the toxic nature of social media, once again, at least was an aggravating factor. Maybe not the causal factor, but an aggravating factor. And we need to do more there. And I mean, it's ironic that Elon Musk claimed for Scholz to resign, and actually this guy was a fan of Elon Musk. So it's really rather inchoate at the moment.
Yeah, so many things all scattered over the place. Anything, though, to note about the profile of the attacker from Saudi Arabia?
Well, I mean, it's extremely unusual because mostly if these things happen, they are younger often. And this guy has been nearly 18 years in Germany, so a long time. And I mean, I don't know how good he was as a doctor, but he seemed to have been reasonably clever. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have held this job. And he was this activist, and he apparently also had some successes as this activist. I mean, there are video clips going around giving interviews to various TV stations. And so I don't know exactly what switched in his brain in the last 2 years, which kind of made him make this kind of rather strange turn.
Right. Clearly, still a lot to be figured out. Raphael, Bossong, security expert at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Many thanks for your insights.
Welcome.
So we are standing by for a live press conference where we're supposed to get some more updates from the police. So we will be crossing over soon to find out what is going on there. This is the live feed. And we are standing by to hear what more authorities have for us regarding the attack on Friday night.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thought for a long time how I should begin this opening statement. You can see how shaken I am. And yesterday was a black day in Magdeburg, and it will remain that for the rest of the history of this city. I know it's a phrase you've heard before, but our thoughts are with those who were injured and the families of those who have died. You can imagine that none of us could shut an eye last night, and our thoughts were constantly with the events that happened yesterday. So allow me at this time to thank all of the emergency services that were at our market square yesterday. I want to thank the police officers, the fire brigade, the emergency services trying to save people's lives, the Christmas market headquarters, the hotline services. I believe that the only good thing we can say about yesterday is how well everyone worked together between the various organizations and agencies involved. At this point, I can give you the latest numbers of victims of yesterday's attack on the Old Market Square. At the moment, we are talking about 205 victims. Of the 205, 5 were killed or have died from the injuries they sustained. 41 people are critically injured, and we can only hope that they survive and that we don't end up with even more dead that we need to mourn. The city of Magdeburg, because of the incident yesterday, has decided to close the Christmas market for this year. I think you will all understand why. I don't know how you feel, but I am currently associating the Christmas market with anything other than mulled wine. People lost their lives yesterday, and I simply cannot imagine going to a Christmas market today. I know there are some who say that we are giving up if we close the Christmas market, but for me it is to do justice to those who were killed and injured. At the same time, we are going to also be turning off the Christmas lights. We've turned them off at the cathedral as well, and this will continue to be the case over the Christmas season. We are going to speak with local politicians and decide whether the forest of lights that we had set up be turned on after Boxing Day, in a sense because light symbolizes hope and perhaps gives the people of Magdeburg a sense that life will continue and that we need to maintain hope despite what's happened. We are deeply shocked. We are absolutely crushed by what's happened. And of course, we have a security concept for the Magdeburg Christmas market, which we are constantly updating. In November, on the 24th of November, before this season, we stepped up security against the background of the knife attack in Solingen. How this could have happened is something the police will be analyzing. I'm not going to speculate, but be assured that the security concept is one that we're constantly updating, and we will update it again once we have received a police analysis. So that by way of the Magdeburg government. I'll pass the floor now on to my colleague. Mr. Tom Oliver Langhans is Director of Police. A very good day to all of you. Apart from my function as Director of the Police of Magdeburg, I was also involved with heading the operation last night. I would like to speak on behalf of all of my colleagues at this point and express our condolences. We wish all of the injured that they recover quickly. We will do what we can to work to understand what went on here and to come up with a solution. As far as we are concerned, when reconstructing the sequence of the crime, I can tell you that at 7:02 p.m., the Magdeburg Police Headquarters received the first emergency call. The caller, because of their assessment of the situation, assumed it had been an accident, but then through further emergency calls, double-digit emergency calls, very quickly, we had the sense that this was an actual attack. The perpetrator began at 7:02, understanding that they were heading through Ernst Reuter Allee towards the main station. The perpetrator ignored the traffic lights and the pedestrian crossing, using the situation to slow down a little bit, to go over the pedestrian crossing, blocking the emergency pathway heading towards the Old Market Square, and then specifically going into this emergency route and injuring a number of people in the process before continuing on to drive towards the Alter Markt, Old Market Square, towards the Christmas market, and then directly entering to the right of the Old Market Square towards the town square, the town hall rather, on the market square, and then after that quite quickly drove much, much faster straight ahead until the perpetrator reached the Old Market Square, turned right into Hartstrasse Street, again using this emergency route to turn onto Ernst Reuter Allee. They then headed to the main square, to Ernst Reuter Allee, and then at the crossroads where the attack scenario began, a situation arose where the perpetrator had to stop, and the colleagues who were guarding the Christmas market stopped his vehicle and spoke to the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator in their vehicle. We're talking about a period of time of about 3 minutes when all of this occurred. Like I said, 19:02, 7:02 p.m., we received the first emergency call, and 7:05, the situation was such that the police were able to capture the alleged perpetrator. And then in this period of time, we undertook the alarming of police forces based on our concept for situations like this. We very quickly evaluated the situation. We realized it was a life-threatening operational situation for which we were prepared. And then very quickly, apart from trying to protect this situation, we entered into police investigations almost immediately. And at the moment, we are assuming that this alleged perpetrator is a lone perpetrator who, based on the investigation so far, we do not expect there to have been anyone else working with the alleged perpetrator. So this is our situation at the moment. Thank you very much. I would now like to ask Mr. Nobens from the Public Prosecutor's Office to give us his statement.
Ja, schönen guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren.
A very good day to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. The Public Prosecutor's Office is also trying to analyze this situation, this tragedy that took place at the Christmas market yesterday evening. We've been involved right from the start. In terms of the status of our investigations, as Mr. Langhans said, the alleged perpetrator was caught directly after the crime. All manner of social media reports were circulating yesterday. We believe this is a perpetrator acting alone. This perpetrator has been detained and is being questioned. And after questioning, we will be applying for a warrant for the arrest of the perpetrator, where we will put the alleged perpetrator in custody. The current crime is quadruple murder, because 5 people have died, and 205 attempted murder counts with grievous bodily harm. These are the crimes that we are currently expecting to lay at the door of the alleged perpetrator. The motive of the alleged perpetrator is something we are still trying to analyze, and it is only within the course of the investigations will we be able to know more about this. It's only 24 hours later, not even that. I'm sure you have many, many questions. We won't be able to answer them because we have to carry out investigations and cannot endanger these by revealing too much too soon.
Can you hear me?
We will try to answer some of your questions, but please forgive us if we are unable to answer all of them.
Sie können das Mikro nehmen. Ich glaube, die Mikros für uns sind erstmal interessant, dass Sie uns alle hören. Wir hören Ihre Frage, ob das jetzt für die Sender interessant ist oder zu hören ist, das weiß ich jetzt nicht.
Sagen Sie doch mal was zur Identität der Todesopfer.
Could you say something about the identity of those who have died?
Altersstruktur, männlich, weiblich, erwachsen,
Are they men, women, adult, children?
Nach dem aktuellen Stand, den ich
As far as we are aware, and please understand that this is all in flux. We're talking about a child and 4 adults who have died, but this may change. It's all in flux.
Ja, das Kind ist 9 Jahre alt.
The child is 9 years old,
Kann ich
was
jetzt an der
9 years
Stelle
old,
nicht sagen, habe ich noch
and I
keine
have no further information, at least no reliable information.
Kann ich jetzt hierzu nichts zu sagen.
I'm afraid I have no further information to add.
Ja, insgesamt 205 Personen.
205 people were affected. 5 have since died of their injuries. You said it was quintuple counts of murder and 205 attempted murder, but the numbers don't add up. The numbers that I refer to are the numbers that I have read in the news. I only just found out now what the numbers are, and these are the numbers. 205 victims, of whom 5 have died.
Anschlag gegen das sunnitische Regime in Saudi-Arabien handelt, was hier in Deutschland ausgetragen wurde.
Jenni Graham.
Do you believe that there's a Shiite background to this attack?
Das ist genau die Frage, die nach der Motivation des Täters.
We are currently trying to understand the motivation of the alleged perpetrator. What I think is possible doesn't play a role. What plays a role is what we find out over the course of our investigations, and I cannot say anything except that based on what we know at the moment of the motivation of the perpetrator, that the background was dissatisfaction with the way Saudi Arabian refugees have been treated in Germany, possibly. But what's behind that is what we are currently investigating. We need to have more time to find out more about what the real motive was.
Der Täter soll bereits verurteilt worden sein zuvor und soll innerhalb kürzester Zeit vor der Tat auch zu einem Gerichtsprozess geladen worden sein. Können Sie vielleicht dazu Angaben machen?
We understand that the alleged perpetrator had another court case that he was supposed to appear at. Could you say anything about that? As far as I am aware, he has not been convicted of whatever charge was pressed. I'm not sure what information you may have and where this information comes, but as far as I am aware, he had no previous convictions. I'm not aware of there being any court case within my own agency. I don't know if he had any other court case running in, say, a civil law case somewhere else in another city. I can't say anything about that. Can you confirm a first name or a second name? And is it true that the Saudi government has been in touch with you? If I were to confirm a name, you would have to say that name for me to confirm it. I can confirm the name that you have just said. That has gone through the media. This is the first name, Taleb. With reference to what the Saudis have said, we don't know anything about that, do we? No, we don't know anything about this at the moment. I also read this in the media, and of course this is part of the case we're investigating. We are working with the various security agencies together in order to verify the statements that we have read. In the past, we pressed a criminal charge, and the police inspectorate of Magdeburg has carried this out. We have tried to look at whether this person was characterized as a danger. We're still investigating this, but we tried to carry out an attempt to contact this person in terms of potential risk, but what I'm talking about happened a year ago and was not successful. Can you tell us what you found in the car of the alleged perpetrator? Forgive me that for reasons of investigation tactics, I cannot say anything about that at this point. I have already answered your question by saying that. I said that I cannot say anything about it, and that is my answer. This is part of the investigation that is ongoing. What we do know is that we have carried out an investigation in terms of the alleged perpetrator's physical state, and the results have not yet been finalized. This, too, is part of the ongoing investigation. Now, you talked about the security concept that you had stepped up for the Christmas market in Magdeburg. I have to say I've never seen a Christmas market with less protection. Perhaps you would like to say something about this. So that's a question to you.
Festnahme oder ist der Täter da einfach nur erst mal stabil gehalten worden? Es gibt ja Videos im Netz, wo man sieht, dass Verstärkungskräfte eintreffen. Als er erst festgenommen wird, das scheint etwas später gewesen zu sein. Außerdem hat er um 19:07 noch getwittert, eine Nachricht abgesetzt. Wenn er um 19:05 festgenommen wurde, ist das sehr schwer möglich. Und die zweite Frage, die Gefährderansprache, ist sie jetzt wirklich durchgeführt worden, auf Anregung der Polizei in Köln oder nicht?
Auf Anregung der Polizei.
Die Kölner Polizei, das LKA in Magdeburg, darauf hingewiesen, dass es dort Drohungen gibt. Und hat eine Gefährderansprache angeregt, die hier durchgeführt werden sollte, weil er hier wohnt. Die Anzeige lag in Köln.
Also zu diesen Erkenntnissen kann ich momentan jetzt nichts sagen.
At this point, I cannot say anything about what you have just said. I am unfamiliar with the details you have referred to. And the documentation that we have is that the alleged perpetrator was detained by the police at 7:05 p.m. German time. And I described to you the situation that occurred. There was one police officer who approached the vehicle, which was stationary at that moment, and then stood directly in front of the vehicle, pointing a weapon at the car, and then was able to keep the situation stable while other police officers came. All of this may have taken 2 or 3 minutes. Possibly the actual time of the arrest was, or detention was, 1907. I do not have any information about the facts or allegations that you are referring to. I cannot confirm or deny what you just said. And then regarding the security concept of the Christmas market, from your perspective, you are saying this is one of the least protected Christmas markets you've ever seen, is entirely a subjective assessment on your part, which I do not share and cannot share. Our concept is one that has worked well for a very long time, and this emergency routes that the alleged perpetrator used are escape routes and emergency routes. Think back at the Love Parade in Duisburg a few years ago. There was only one route for an escape corridor, one route for people who were fleeing could use, and that led to a terrible stampede. So you have to think about escape routes if you're planning any public meeting. You have to protect the public themselves, ensure that they can get away, though, if anything happens, as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. For that, you must have escape route corridors. And this security concept is not something that's created in a vacuum. It's not something that Magdeburg just cobbled together quickly. These security concepts have to be approved by the police, by the organizers, by the Disaster Relief Center. All of these agencies are involved and had coordinated our security concept. And they confirmed and approved of it as it stands. Thus, the case that we are talking about here is a case that we could not have anticipated in terms of its dimension. And it is a case that we perhaps could not have prevented, but I do not wish to anticipate the findings of the police investigation. You have heard that they are still working on it. And you can assume that this security concept was in flux, and we will once again address it.
Right, that was German police holding a press conference after the attack in Magdeburg. They were taking some questions from journalists or reporters there. So just a quick recap of some of the things to highlight. First of all, they thanked emergency services for their fast response. No particular update on the casualties yet. It's still 5 dead, 41 critically injured out of 205 victims of the attack. What also stood out was that Magdeburg has closed the Christmas markets, and they will stay closed until further notice. Christmas lights will be turned off at the cathedral and other places. Mentioning how deeply shocked they were, but also mentioned the need for hope, for people to have hope. And we're going to definitely get more as we cross over to our correspondent, Jenni Graham, who's covering the story in Magdeburg. Hello, Jenni. I've pointed out a couple of highlights, but you were also listening in to the presser. What stood out for you?
Well, Eddie, I think what stood out most to me, especially, having looked at the security situation around the market since we arrived here, questions were being asked about just how secure the market was. In Berlin after the Christmas market attack there, you see lots of reinforced bollards. It's a massive, massive security operation around Christmas markets there. Here, and I have to say we remarked upon it when we arrived today, if you can imagine some large red and green Lego bricks. That is the extent of the barricade that we saw around the market. We obviously weren't able to get inside because it had closed, but really looking from the outside where this happened, it really, the reporters in that press conference were asking just how secure was the market, and from our perspective, if that is the extent of the security enforcement here, then I think it's quite right that those questions are being asked in that press conference. In that press conference, we got confirmation, obviously, yes, that 5 people have sadly lost their lives in this attack.
Right, sadly, 9-year-old child and 4 adults killed. DW's Jenni Graham, thank you very much for your time.